Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, so I'm going to answer this question. Now, usually when I answer a question, I usually do it in writing. But I thought this question was an excellent question to ask. So what the person's asked me is about the meaning of the particle Thumma in a specific verse. And in the same context, we have also the particle Thumma here in this verse, which is describing the creation of the earth, followed by the creation of the heavens. And there's a particle Thumma. So the question was, how do we know that Thumma does not have the meaning of order? Because scientifically we know that the heavens were created before the earth. So the questioner asked whether that was to do with the scientific knowledge that we have. Does scientific knowledge interpret the way we understand verses? Meaning, in the future, if we discover something which becomes a fact, whether we can interpret the Qur'an in that particular way to suit something that is known in the future. And the short answer is, we can do that if language supports that fact. That's one point to note. So, but the important thing is that the language has to support that particular interpretation. Some people try to fit the Qur'an with some scientific discovery, and usually these people don't have the right qualifications, meaning they don't have the prerequisite knowledge to be able to interpret these verses the way that they do, which is unfortunate. So the question was regarding the Thumma, whether scientific knowledge is the only criteria in actually giving it this meaning. No, it isn't. I'll just need to explain something with tafsir. Anyone that studies basic tafsir will know this, is the following. Now, to understand what meaning this particle has, any part of the Qur'an, if you want to understand what it means, and the meaning is not clear, one of the first things you do is to look at the other verses that deal with the same subject matter. In other words, the Qur'an explains the Qur'an. So just a quick example of this is we have the following verse, وَقَدْ خَلَقَكُمْ أَطْوَارًا, while He has created you in stages. So it mentions being created in stages. Now what the Qur'an does in other verses, it actually mentions the stages. The stages before one is born, when one is conceived, and then when one comes into this world in a lot of detail. So to understand this verse, you need to understand the other verses. So similarly, with regards to creation, to understand the order of creation, or the order that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions creation, we need to go to the tafsirs. One of the tafsirs that, one of my personal favorite tafsirs of the Qur'an, which is quite simple, at the same time it deals with a lot of the language and the linguistic subtleties of the Qur'an, is Baydawi's tafsir. And he's a 9th century, so 9th century Hijrah, which is like 15th century on the Christian calendar. So we're talking about over 500 years ago. And what he says about Thumma is the following. It starts from here. Thumma لتفاوت ما بين الخلقين. So it's contrasting between the two creations. لا للتراخي في المدة. So it's not for chronological order. And then he gives the reason why. And this is actually quite interesting. And he says لقوله والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها. Comes before the creation of the mountains. So just keep that in mind. Now the reason why he mentions that is because there's actually another tafsir or interpretation of this verse. It leads to a contradiction. Now let's go to the other tafsir which has the contradiction. Those scholars say the following. What they say is that the creation of the earth in its initial form was there before the 7 heavens. Before the creation of the 7 heavens. So number one. And then what happened was the creation of the 7 heavens. Then Allah made the earth flat. دحاها. In this verse. وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. Now the reason why Qadi Baydawi in his tafsir says that it's متقدم على خلق الجبال, The reason why he says that is because in Surah Fussilat, it mentions the mountains put into the earth between 1 and 2, between these two, meaning it's here. While in the verse where it mentions in Surah An-Nazi'at, the Jibal comes after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the earth flat. So it comes here. So there's actually a contradiction in that particular opinion. So what Qadi Badawi does is he says the following. In the verse, this is Surah An-Nazi'at, here, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. So the creation of the heavens is mentioned, and then وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. So بَعْدَ, Baydawi translates بَعْدَ as after. So after the creation of the heavens, he creates the earth, or he spreads out the earth, and then وَالْجِبَالَ أَرْسَاهَا, and the mountains he set firmly. So let's go back to the verse in Surah Fussilat. So here, see what it says here? وَجَعَلَ فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ, the mountains. So he has placed on the earth firmly set mountains. So this would actually be a contradiction. If Thumma meant order, then when did the mountains come? So what Qadi Badawi says is that the Thumma here does not mean chronological order, based on the other verse mentioned. At the same time, he recognizes something else. Is why was earth mentioned first rather than the heavens? It's because of the subject matter. It says, قُلْ أَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَكْفُرُونَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَ الْأَرْضِ. So it's talking about those who disbelieve. Say, do you indeed disbelieve? And where are they? They're on earth. So quite appropriately, the earth was mentioned. So it's saying, do you disbelieve in the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you see all around you? And then it mentions a matter which is of the unseen. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ وَهِيَ دُخَانٌ. They're not going to disbelieve in استوى إلى السماء وهي دخان because they have no comprehension of this. It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Qur'an. But if they see the mountains, the great blessings that Allah has given them, and they disbelieve in that. So quite appropriately, the earth was mentioned first. Now one other point is what comes after these verses. So if you go to verse 13 of Surah Fussilat. I haven't put it up on the slide, but let me just see. وَقَضَاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَوَاتٍ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ وَأَوْحَى فِي كُلِّ سَمَاءٍ أَمْرَهَا وَزَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا مَصَابِيحَ وَحِفْظًا ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. And then what does he say after mentioning the heavens, the creation of the heavens? He says, but if you turn away, then say, I have warned you of a destructive torment. And appropriately, it actually transitions to the heavens when it actually mentions the punishment. I hope that answers your question. And the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, we know that order is not mentioned. If anything is not clear, you can ask me. وصلى الله سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.